Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be creating an animated button on Figma. This video is going to be very short because it's a very simple process, and of course I'm going to be very considerate to beginner designers as I go through the process. If this is your first time on my YouTube channel, please do not forget to subscribe, like and share to someone that you think might need any of these videos. So let's get straight into it. So I'm sure that you know, as a designer, most times when you want to create a button, you are using auto layouts to create a button. So basically, if you wanted to create a regular button, you probably do pay now, and while you click on it, you just do a Shift A, and it adds a frame around the button. And this frame, you can fill it with colors over here that says fill, not at this point, but that says fill over here. While text in there is white, so I'm just going to change it so that we'll be able to see it clearly. So I'm showing this process because I think most people, if you do not already know that this is how you're supposed to create like a standard button for your design. So I want to explain that while we are doing this particular tutorial, we're not going to be using auto layout to create our button because it wouldn't work for it. And I want to actually confirm to you that using auto layout is the best way for you to create a regular button. But then why do we use auto layout to create a button? Is because we want to be able to adjust the button to fit any screen size that we want. Basically, if this, for example, is the size of the button we needed for a desktop version, we want to be able to use auto layout to make sure that it gets to the size for a mobile version without actually changing the properties of the button, like, changing the structure of the button. That is why we do that. But now for this particular design we want to make, we're going to be using a frame to create our button because of the effect we want to add into it. So I'm just going to drag a frame, something like this, and just the same way the auto layout is named as frame, this frame is here. The only difference is that this is an adjustable frame, but I'll show you how to adjust your frame too for the purpose of this tutorial. It is best for you to use auto layout to create a normal standard button, but for the purpose of this type of animation we're trying to create, we can use a frame to actually get it done. So this video is not to make you feel like you shouldn't be using auto layout to create your button. It's just for us to achieve what we want to achieve in a way that the button still maintains a proper button look and feel. Okay, so now I just added a frame, and I'm going to bring in a text just the way I added a pay now text into the other one. I'm just going to type pay now, and I'm going to change the color to green because our frame is obviously showing white. So I'm going to change the color of this to green, and I'm just going to drag it into the design. Now, one thing that auto layout does for you is that when you put a text in here, you can actually align it to wherever you want it to be in the button, whichever point you want in the middle. But then using frame, this is how we can make sure that our text is aligned to the middle. We just come over here and click on the middle and the middle. So now this particular pay now button is actually sitting at the middle of this frame. And when we use our scale tool, instead of just dragging it like this, even if you drag it like this, the pay now is going to maintain the middle position, which is why I feel we can use this for this animation, because it's basically carrying the properties that the auto layout would give to us normally. But then we can also use the scale tool, like a situation where our text is a lot bigger than this. Right now we're using 20.02. Let's say our text is 36, for example, and it's looking this big. Let's put it back in the middle and in the middle. So if we decide to reduce the size of this button, the text doesn't reduce with it, as you can see, but with auto layout it's going to reduce. But how do you make sure that your text and everything is reducing while you are handling a frame, while you are creating a button with a frame? I'll just go over here to my tool area, and under move tool I'm going to go to my scale tool. Now you can either come over here to click on the scale tool, or you just click on K on your keyboard and use your cursor is going to be showing a different type of arrow. So if we reduce this particular button to any size, the text is going to reduce with it, and we can actually adjust it for a mobile version or a desktop version. And basically it is doing almost similar thing that the auto layout will do for our button. So I think I got a question like this on Instagram, and I thought to begin with this particular part of this video, just answering that question in case that person is in here. So let us move on. But basically, we just created our frame and we've added our text to it. I'm going to create another text that says paid. Oh, sorry. Didn't use my text tool. So I'm going to create another text that says paid. So now I can increase the size of this. Right now I'm using this really bold text for this so that everybody can see clearly what I'm doing. And we want to animate this thing that paid comes from the up into it. So pay now can be here, but then we'll have our green or our loading bar just goes to the end, but pay is going to come from the end. So how do we do that? We make sure we find a way to hide this paid inside this frame. So let's quickly add an icon to this page just to give it a little bit more aesthetic. So I'm just going to go to plugin, go to Iconify. If you do not have Iconify in your list of plugins here, you just go to manage plugin and you type Iconify. So I'm going to click on Iconify, and we're going to load our icon shortly, and we'll add it to the paid text. So while I'm here, let me look for the check icon. So I'm just going to look for one that works for me. I want something that comes with a circle instead of me trying to create mine. I want something that fill the circle like this. So I'm just going to drag this out here. It's black and it's fitting into my background, so I might have to change the color. So I'm just going to click on this and see if I can change the color from here. I'll change this to supposed to be white because it's going to be on a green background. So I'll change it to white, just like this. So now we have our icon. I'm just going to place it at the side of paid like this. It's looking too big. I'll hold on my shift key and I'll drag it in. I'm holding on the shift key because I do not want to deform the shape of this circle. So if you were dragging it without holding on your shift key, some part of it is probably going to turn to an oval. Let me just practicalize that for you in case you do not know what I mean by that. So if we put a circle like this now and I'm not holding on my shift key, I'm just dragging, it might start losing its form. So if I hold on my shift key, no matter how large or how small I turn it to, it's still going to maintain the same size. So you're going to see like 41 by 41. So that's why I held on the shift key. But anyways, now that this is done, I'll click on this, hold on shift and click on this. If you do not want to do that, all you have to do is just drag on the both of them like this. So I'm going to click on this icon, I'll hold on shift, then I'll do Ctrl G, which is to group this particular thing together. So now they're in one group and it's easy for me to hide them inside this frame. So I'm going to just quickly just put them, I'm going to use my arrow key instead. I'm just going to drag this and hide it inside the frame. So as I'm dragging it, is going behind the frame. Because it's white, we might not be able to see it clearly. But when I posted this video on my Instagram, I used a different color so that you'll be able to see it clearly, but we just dragged it into the frame. So now that that is done, the next thing we're going to do is come in with a rectangle, and I want to use this rectangle as the loading bar. So I'm going to put green or whatever color you want to use. I'm going to use green. I'm going to curve the edges because when the thing is loading, I want it to have like a curved edge. So I'm just going to go over here. Let me use a very big curve. Let me use 41 for example. Then I'll measure it with this. So basically what we're trying to do is make sure that the loading just goes like this to the edge of the button. But another thing is that while you are putting this curve on this loader, you need to put the same curve on the frame so that it laps when it loads to the end of it. So if I'm using 41 for this, I'll probably use the same for this so that they just lap together when it loads to the end of it, something like this, and it just laps instead of one having a different outlook. So the same way I added that text and dragged it in, I'm going to put this text inside it, this rectangle inside this frame, and I'll start dragging it with my arrow key. I'm just pressing on the back arrow key to drag it in, and I'll hide it behind the frame. So now that that is done, I'm going to click on frame 2 and I'll Ctrl D, that is duplicate it and put it just right here. And what is the next action I want with this particular button? The next action is that this pane now, because you've already clicked on it here, this pane now goes away, so I'm dragging it down to hide it under. Then I'm going to bring in our rectangle. So if you cannot find it here, just come over to frame 3, click on the rectangle and drag it in slowly with your arrow key. So I'll drag it to the end of it just like this, so that I see this particular movement you're seeing is what our animation is going to have. So I'll drag it to the end and make it lap. Now that that is done, I'm going to duplicate it and move into the next action I want this button to take. So now that I've duplicated, what is the next action I want this button to take? I want this green to still be here, but I want our paid text or group to come out from here. So now remember we grouped them, so I'm just going to click on the group. You could label your group so that you remember what they are, and I'll just drag it in like this. Oh sorry, the rectangle, I'm not going to remove all of these flaws because it happens. So this group is here, the rectangle is on top of it, so that is why we are not seeing it. So I'm just going to quickly drag this group on top of the rectangle. So it was over here hidden in our frame, and I just dragged it out just like this, and I can decide to still place it in the middle of the frame and in the middle to make sure that it's properly aligned. Now we have basically carried out all the actions that we want on this particular animation, and what I'm going to do is hold on shift. I could either make them a component set now, but let me start first by prototyping them. So we'll go to prototype and we just connect from this to this. What is the action we want these users to take to move from this to this? I want them to click on the pay now, and then it seemed like it just loaded, then it gets to the point of pay, so I'm leaving it at on click. Then we'll go to smart animate, which is always the best option, by the way. I'm probably going to take this to 600 to just see how it looks like. This might not be the perfect number, but whenever you're doing animation like this, sometimes you might not just get the number right immediately. And I'm not going to be cutting out all these flaws because I want you to see how real this entire process is. So I'm going to be using 600. I know I've done the tutorial and I've posted it on Instagram, and I could easily just put my figures, but I want us to see while I choose the figures I choose. So I'm going to leave it at ease out and put this 600. Now I'm going to click on this frame. Now that this one has moved to this, what do we want this to do? So it's supposed to load to the end, then afterwards it goes to this without you clicking or doing anything. And so if you do not want somebody to particularly take an action, what you want to condition this animation to do is to do what it needs to do after delay. So basically, you don't want anybody to click on it, you don't want nobody to drag, hover, press or whatnot. You just want it to take the action by itself. So we'll take it to after delay, and I'm going to make this 1 millisecond because I want it to switch from frame 3 to frame 4 really fast, and I'm going to leave this at 600 and ease out. So now when you get to this point, do you want them to be able to click on this button again to take them back to the beginning? That would really not be necessary, but for the purpose of this video, so that we can see a loop on how the button works, I'm just going to take it back here, and I'm going to make it on click because I don't want it to automatically go there. I want to control how it moves. But like I said, in a real project, it might not be easy. In fact, it is not necessary for you to, when someone gets to the point of pay, that you are linking them back to pay now. It's really not necessary. So now the next thing for me to put it in my design is to click on this, just like this, hold on shift and click. Then I'll come over here on this arrow and I'll create a component set. Now when I create a component set, if I go to my asset panel, you're going to see that this thing I created is just here, and I can bring in my design or my frame, whichever one. If you already designed something and you want to add this to it, I can just easily bring it over here. Because our dormant button is white, I'm going to make this background dark so that I can just sit well into it. So this will make it a little bit dark, so you can just sit well into it. So I'm just going to make it a little bit dark. I'm going to curve the edges a little just like this, and I'm going to drag this asset now from here to here and just place it in my design. Sometimes when you place your asset in your design and it's too big, remember I told you can use the scale tool without changing the dimension of what you're doing. So you can click on K and your cursor is going to change, or you come over here and choose the scale tool. So I'm just going to drag to the size that I want it to be, and it's not going to affect anything that we have done. I'm going to place it in the middle of my frame just like this. Then now we can go and preview what we just did. Basically, this is the entire process, and now we have to preview to see how it went. So here we are. Let us see how this animation we created, how it works. Now remember, our first action is to click on Pay Now, then it loads and automatically leads here. But like I said, there is no need in a proper project for you to click on this again and take you back here. But it's for the purpose of us looking at this thing over and over again for this video. That is why I actually created that loop. So this is the easy way. Basically, this is a very easy animation for you to add to your design, and I hope this was enjoyable to you, and I hope you're able to replicate this. And thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe.